Welcome. Today we're going to discuss the Feast of Shavuot. What does the Feast of Shavuot represent? When is the Feast of Shavuot? And how do we determine the connection between Shavuot and the first three festivals? So Shavuot is the wheat harvest that is connected to the first three festivals, which is Passover, unleavened bread, and first fruits. Now Shavuot is basically determined by counting from the first three festivals to reach a certain count, and then you celebrate the Feast of Shavuot. So the verse is Leviticus 23:15, and you shall count for yourselves from the day after the Sabbath, from the day that you brought the sheaf of the wave offering, 7 Sabbaths shall be completed. So we see that there's a Sabbath, and that Sabbath is the Feast of Unleavened Bread, which is day 1, which is always the Sabbath. And then it talks about the sheaf of the wave offering, which is first fruits. So we see those two festivals mentioned here. And what you'll also note is that we are looking at the ancient biblical lunar calendar to do our count. Now how that calendar works is that you start the month with the sighting of the moon, which is Rosh Chodesh, which is the forgotten feast. And that is day 1 of the month. The following day starts day 1 of the week. And then you count 7 days, which will make day 8 the first Sabbath of that month. And then all the other Sabbaths will fall on the 15th day, 22nd day, and the 29th day. What you'll notice is that the month is only 29 days. There might be 30 days, and that will be a dark moon, where you wait for the next sliver, and you'll always get a full moon on the 15th of the month, which is always a Sabbath. So unleavened bread falls exactly on this weekly Sabbath as well, and that is why it's a high Sabbath. So unleavened Feast of Passover is on Nisan 14. Nisan 15 is unleavened bread, which is also a weekly Sabbath. And then first fruits is Nisan 16. And verse 16 says, count 50 days to the day after the 7th Sabbath, then you shall offer a new grain offering to Yahweh. Now that grain offering is Shavuot. So 50 days we count, and that will be the day after the 7th Sabbath that we will start from Nisan 16. So if we count with Nisan 16 as day 1, we get the first Sabbath on day 22, which is Sabbath 1. Then day 29 is Sabbath 2. Then we get the second month after Rosh Chodesh, which is day 8 is Sabbath 3. And then day 15 again, full moon, which is the 4th Sabbath. Now what's interesting is that on this day they received the commandment of the manna. Exodus 16 verse 1 says, and they journeyed from Elim and Sinai on the 15th day of the second month after they departed from the land of Egypt. So on this day they received the commandment of the manna. And it says in verse 11, at twilight you shall eat meat, and in the morning you shall be filled with bread. So that is an indication that the starting of the next week, day 1, is the day that they will get the manna. And that confirms that day 15, which is a Sabbath, that day 16 is the first day of the next week, which coincide with the ancient lunar biblical calendar, confirming that counting sequence. So we had Sabbath 4 on day 15, Sabbath 5 on day 22, Sabbath 6 on day 29, and then we get the third month after the third Rosh Chodesh, or the sighting of the new moon. Now this is the 7th Sabbath, or day 49. Now the day after will be day number 9, which is day 50 of the count, as confirmed. Now we get confirmation about this pattern, and it's slightly different to what I taught last year. And when I saw the commandment about Jubilee, we have 7 Sabbaths of 7 years. which is exactly the same pattern. So you have to confirm the pattern within Jubilee as well as in Shavuot in order not to contradict Scripture. So Leviticus 25:8-10 says, "And you shall count 7 Sabbaths of years for yourself, 7 times 7 years, and the time of the 7 Sabbaths of years shall be to you 49 years." So we had 49 days, now we have 49 years. "And you shall consecrate the 50th day and proclaim liberty throughout the land and to all its inhabitants." And this is a confirmation that day 50 is the day of the celebration. So looking at the 7-week cycles, confirm the same pattern, and that's why day 49 is on the 7th Sabbath and day 50 is the next day. Now, before we go to that, there's something else that was revealed here. Exodus 19 verse 1-2 indicated when Israel arrived at Mount Sinai. Now, last year I interpreted the verse, "In the 3rd month after the children of Israel had gone out of the land of Egypt, in that same day they came to the wilderness of Sinai." So that can mean that the same day that they left Egypt on the 1st month, that same day on the 3rd month, which is the 15th of the 3rd, they arrived at Mount Sinai. So that will mean that they are at the mountain after the fact. So they would have celebrated this feast on their way traveling to the mountain, which made it impossible to do. But if you read the wording in Hebrew, it says in the 3rd month, which is Bikodesh, Chodesh, which is the 3rd new moon. Now the new moon is a flag on its own. It indicates the beginning of a month. So it's a significant day. It reads on, "After the children of Israel had gone out of the land of Egypt, in that same day, Biyom, they came to the wilderness of Sinai." So which same day? Is it the 15th of the 1st month, that same 15th of the 3rd? Or is it this first statement of in the 3rd new moon, on that same day they came into Sinai? So since Rosh Chodesh is a significant day, I believe that this points to that day, meaning that they came into the wilderness at Mount Sinai on the 1st day of the 3rd month, which is interesting because it is 3 new moons with the focus on the new moon, and the number 3 means covenant, and that's exactly what they're going to receive. Now Moses then went up the mountain, Exodus 19 verse 3-6, "And Moses went up to Elohim, and Yahweh called to him from the mountain. Now therefore, if you will indeed obey my voice and keep my covenant, then you shall be a special treasure to me above all people. For all the earth is mine, and you shall be to me a kingdom of priests, a holy nation. These are the words which you will speak to the children of Israel." So Yahweh made a special proclamation that his covenant will make them a kingdom of priests, a special people, a holy nation unto him, or a set apart nation, set apart for a specific purpose. So this was said after they arrived at the mountain on Rosh Chodesh, the 3rd new moon. And it doesn't really say how long Moses was on the mountain, but we do have the 7th Sabbath, which is day 49 and day 50. And the next commandment that Yahweh told him to do is for the people to cleanse themselves for 3 days. So if you take day 3 as day 50 and you count back, you get day 7 of the month, the day when they started to sanctify themselves. And that means that Moses was on the mountain from either day 1 to day 6, or for 6 days. And that could have been the case. So they cleansed themselves for 3 days. And it says, "For on the 3rd day Yahweh will come down upon Mount Sinai in the sight of all the people." And that would have been day 50. So this is the day when Yahweh spoke the 10 commandments to the people. Now, what I discussed last year, or what I taught last year, was that there was an additional time period of 6 days that Moses was in the cloud. He went up the mountain with the 70 elders. Then Yahweh called him onto the mountain after that for 40 days and 40 nights. Then he came down with the 2 tablets. He saw Israel broke the covenant, worshipping a golden calf, and he broke the tablets. After that, Yahweh called him back up the mountain for another 40 days and 40 nights, where he received a second set of commandments. So we see the same thing repeated 3 times. Yet again, the number 3 confirm the concept of the covenant. The first time it was spoken verbally to every single person. The second time the tablets was received as confirmation of those words. They broke those commandments, and the tablets were broken as a result of that. And then the third time they received the commandments, but these commandments stayed intact, just like the first words that were spoken. So that gives us the idea that the third time that the commandments will be given, it will not be broken. And that's where Pentecost, or the receiving of the Spirit, confirms that the writing of the commandments on the heart will make sure that you do not break them. It will be as if Yahweh is speaking to you personally, into keeping the commandments, as well as changing your nature, that will give you the ability to fulfill these commandments. But there's still a dilemma, because wheat takes 4 months, or between 110 and 120 days to ripen. So on day 50, you don't have an harvest. So what do? If you count on the 7 days, or the 6 days plus the 40 days, it brings you to about 80 to 88 days later, which is still short of the harvest. And if you add another 40 days to that, it brings you right after the 120 day mark, which is in the right target for bringing the harvest. And since the farmers had to go out 3 times a year, of which Shavuot is the second one, to bring a harvest, they cannot go empty-handed. That's why I believe in the presence of the temple, you have to have harvest, and then you celebrate Shavuot, and celebrating and recognizing the third event of receiving the commandments, including the harvest. But for us without the temple, we are allowed to celebrate it on day 50, which commemorate the receiving of the commandments, which Yahweh spoke directly to his people. So it's not wrong to do the first one, it's not wrong to do the second one or the third one, but the most 2 significant ones are the first one and the last one, because the last one is the commandments that's still intact. The first one is the most important event, where Yahweh spoke it directly to individuals. So we are this year going to celebrate the first one, which will be Shavuot, and I will put out the dates for that. But in saying that, the third one is still relevant, and that's basically what we attempt to celebrate last year, which is also a legit way of celebrating, making it in sync with the harvest. So I hope that gives you a bit more information and insight into this feast, and may you have a lovely celebration and enjoy the process and be transformed while you count the Omer that leads up to day 50, which is a number that represents grace. So hope you have a lovely time. Until next time, have a wonderful week. Shabbat Shalom.